FPK, Future Proof Knowledge Podcast. Mind unlocked. With every episode we cast. Real talk, real tools, wisdom on the fly. Tune in, geek out, reach for the sky. FPK, Future Proof Knowledge Podcast.
Future Proof Knowledge Podcast, episode 12. I'm going solo. Yes, indeed. I am on my own today, which should be interesting. So for those of you who maybe don't know, I used to do Facebook Live back in the day. Jesus, it's going back a few years now, where I would get questions from parents for my Help Me to Parent business. And the listeners would send in questions, and also we'd kind of be interacting live on air as well. And I'd sit and I would talk to the screen and answer those questions that were fired in. And when I found out that I was going to be on my own today, I went, right, let's go back in and check with some folks that, I maybe would trust, that would have genuine questions. And also I dug back into my bag of questions from back in the day doing the Help Me to Parent live podcast or live Facebook Live, and pulled out as many questions as I could find so that I can try and answer them for you guys as I'm sitting here on a all of a sudden very, very wet Tuesday afternoon here in Ireland. It was lovely this morning, absolutely lovely. It wasn't too bad in the afternoon, a little bit grey, a little bit dull, and the skies have just opened up. So probably in the last 10 minutes. So for all those people who finish work at 5 o'clock, walking home, I feel your pain. So yeah, like we're going to delve into kind of questions, and I'll try and answer. In fairness, I hadn't realized I had so many questions that I hadn't answered from back in the day. And yeah, when you ask somebody, look, have you got any questions in relation to kind of neurodiversity or education or that kind of thing, or even parenting, whatever? Usually when you ask somebody that, you'll get a kind of a, yeah, here's this question, or here's this question. And one of the people I asked went, great, I've got an opportunity. 7 questions fired in. Like, that's somebody who's thinking about those questions a lot. To be able to go boom, 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 and have a rake of questions lined up within an hour. Like, I want to say thank you to that person if they're tuning in. And I hope the answers are in some way useful and beneficial to you. But apart from that, I hope you folks have been enjoying the little snippets we've been putting out as well on our social media, as well as the YouTube shorts. What we're finding is that they're getting a decent amount of traction. So there's obviously some things hitting the mark, which is kind of nice as well, because obviously, like, we're not just doing this for the good of our health. We're trying to bring you guys as much information, but practical information that you can put into practice at home, or different ways of thinking of different topics and that kind of thing. And yeah, like there's a huge amount of work going in on the back end to get that information kind of chopped up and popped up into the socials. So we hope you find it useful. If you are, please do subscribe to the channel, and also, give us a share, give us a bit of a rating on your podcast channels as well, because that does make a big difference and tries to it gets the platforms kind of boosting our or putting us in front of other people, which is what we kind of want to do, because we want to amplify the voices of those people who maybe don't get as much attention, positive attention, as some of the others, be that young people, be those teenagers, be those adults who maybe struggle. And I was talking to somebody the other day who actually has a business, or I think they're established. Either they're established or they're setting up a business anyway. Around working with improving working conditions for neurodiverse adults. Now, I know there's probably tons of organizations and companies out there doing that. But what I liked about this company, they were kind of really trying to, instead of just going to, say, a big bank or whatever, tech company, and saying, okay, this is the solution for you to be able to tick the box on we are supporting our neurodiverse employees. What this company were looking to do was go in and do a deep dive in each individual company, which is like, when you think about it, like they're pitching to kind of massive organizations with thousands of employees, but they go in and they will evaluate the processes. Now, I have no idea how much they're charging for it. I'm sure they're making money out of it. Like I would hope so. But yeah, they're going in and really evaluating the processes that are within organizations, doing interviews with, everybody on the neuro spectrum, and then they make recommendations, and they will have their solutions that I think the companies can buy in, but at the same time, those recommendations can be easily implemented by the companies themselves. So it actually sounds like a really progressive, positive business. I hope it goes well. I'm not saying the name of it because I don't know the name of it. If I get permission to give the name out in maybe a future episode, I will. But it was only when I started to get the questions in, it got me thinking about that company. And yeah, so hopefully more organizations, and I'll come to the specific question. I have them here on the screen beside me, so if you see me looking over the whole time, that's where I keep all my questions. But if you guys do have any questions yourselves, I will try and answer them on the fly as well in our little live chat studio as well. So is there anything else I need to tell you about? I'm trying to think before I crack into the questions. I don't think so. Yeah, no, just the podcast. Keep sharing, or our socials. Follow the FBK University socials. That'd be great. And yeah, if anything else comes back to me, I'll dive straight in. Right. So the first question, it's amazing when you ask for questions and you get a question, and the first question is a real humdinger of a question. It's not as simple. A plus B equals C. Although, I suppose as I'm saying that out loud, like if we think about it, life for neurodiverse people generally isn't A plus B equals C. Or maybe it's so strictly A plus B has to equal C, otherwise I don't feel okay. So maybe that's why I've got this question to kick it off. So, what does neurodiversity actually mean in the context of parenting and education? Told you it wasn't a really straightforward one. So, what I was trying to do when I was collating the questions, I was kind of going, right, well, how do I answer these in as succinct a way that brings value? And look, everything that I say forthgoing, or going forth even, is all with the understanding that I'm not saying this is the way it is for everybody. It's just my personal experience with the people that I've worked with over the last 25 years, and it's generalized. So I'll try and be specific as possible, but if you hear me talking or answering something and you're kind of, that's not my experience with my child, or that's not my experience when I was in education, or it's not my experience in the workplace, that's okay. I'm not claiming to be answering all the questions for all the people on the spectrum of neurodiversity. So let's just have that caveat in first. So the first question, yeah, what does neurodiversity actually mean in the context of parenting and education? So for me, I always strip it right back to, like, and we've mentioned it before, we don't really talk about being having neurodiversity or being neurotypical. What we talk about is everyone is neurodiverse on some level of a spectrum. And what that means in the context of parenting first, what I'd say is none of us as parents necessarily have the answer straight away. So for the majority of parents that I've experienced in the past, we don't have our children, and then our children come into the world and we go, "Oh, okay, you're a baby, but I know you're dyslexic and you have autism, or you definitely have ADHD, or you definitely have dysgraphia," because they're babies and we don't know. And we'll read books and we'll go online onto forums and we'll ask questions and we'll get responses from people, and they will be logical. They'll make sense in lots of our brains. And then sometimes when we try and transfer that logic into our own children, and our children don't go along with that same pattern, it can kind of be a bit disconcerting. And then what can happen is we can start to ask these questions in our head, going, why is my child doing things or not doing things the same as everybody else? Like, so I remember when my second daughter came along, and she was about, I'm going to say maybe a year and a half. And I remember, like, I was holding her and having a little cuddle, which I loved doing and still love doing. Doesn't happen as often though, because they're pretty much adults now. But I was giving her a cuddle and I was looking at her, and in my head I was going, you're not doing the same things that your older sister did at the same age. And it was like a real, what's happening? Like, not that she was misbehaving, and she was just different to her older sibling. And like, on a logical level, I can sit back and go, well, when I think about growing up, like, myself and my brother are quite different in terms of personality, in terms of how we interact in the world and stuff like that. And that's probably why we get on. We didn't get on as well when we were kids, but that's siblings for you. But, we get on really well now. But as a dad, it really kind of not knocked me, just I was surprised that she was so different to, or her, how she was very different to how her sister was. So that was my first sign that, I have to do things differently, because my children are different. And then that moved into then the learning side of things. And, like, the reality is they learn very differently as well. And when I look at parents, we we will we can have a feeling or a thought or a wondering, is there something going on for my child? And there may be different indicators. So, my child needs so much less sleep or doesn't sleep as much as everyone says they should. Or my child, I go pick my child up from the creche, and every single day they'll say, oh, your child didn't go for a nap, or your child was like running around the place and was difficult to control. Or teachers in early years in school might go, we're just wondering about your child. They just don't seem to be hitting the same metrics as everybody else. And we can all of a sudden start going, oh my God, is there something wrong with my child? Have I missed something? Have I caused something? And it'd be quite a stressful thing. And like we've talked in the past many times about how when we get stressed, the logical part of our brain shuts down and we go into fight or flight or the freeze response. And that's when I get many parents coming to me going, like, is there something wrong with my child? Because the teacher's saying this or the creche is saying this, or we live in a world of yes and no's, when usually the answer is in the bit in the grey in the middle. And I think that if we try and get comfortable in the discomfort of being in the grey as best as we can, that gives us an opportunity to take that step back and just observe first and foremost. Okay, how do I find my child at home? Do I find that my child can sit down and concentrate? Do I find that my child does actually go to sleep? Now, your experience might be exactly the same as the teachers or the Montessori teacher or whomever, and there might be something there. So it's no harm in checking it with your GP, going, look, this is what uh, they're saying in the creche, or this is what they're saying in the preschool or the school. I have these experiences myself. Is it worth checking things out? And look, a GP will probably give you hopefully some reassuring advice, and will probably say the same. Just observe it and see how it goes, because you don't need to have all the answers straight away when you're going through a phase of discovery. So as a parent, when it comes to neurodiversity, I would say try not to label very quickly, because like most people, something happens. My child's not sleeping. What do we do? Pick up the phone. My child is not sleeping. What could this be a sign of? Boom, search. And what we're going to get is, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this. Oh, or this, or this. And we might get lots of different options. And then we read the explanations of those and we're like, that's looking fairly familiar. But actually, so is this over here. And you're kind of going, is my child like just got all the challenges ahead of them? So what I'd say to you is start to observe, start to take on board what other people are saying, but trust your own gut as well. Okay. So that's in the context of parenting. What I would also say when it comes to parenting, and this in a lot of cases will be the same for education as well, but in terms of parenting, look at how we are managing our household, and are we allowing ourselves the opportunity to stay as calm as possible? Because, like, look, anxiety is something that's talked about everywhere. People are talking about how depression's on the rise. People talk about how busyness is 24/7. And all those pressures are real. Like, we're living in a very different world to even 20 years ago. But sometimes when we're feeling maybe a bit overwhelmed or a bit stressed, that's the moment where we come back into our own little world and go, okay, if I'm finding that I'm getting stressed or worried or upset or anxious in relation to my children because of what I'm seeing on social media, what I'm seeing when I'm picking up from the creche, what I'm hearing from, grandparents who are giving their input and going, little Johnny, just there's something going on there for him. And we can go, "Oh, did I not notice it? Did I miss it? Or did I not miss it? Is it bubbling under the surface? Just bring yourself back into, okay, what do we need to do to try and help ourselves as best as possible? First things first is try and help yourself stay as calm as you can by focusing on your mental and physical health and your diet and your exercise and your sleep. Now, I know you're going to be sitting there going, Alan, I'd love to get a bit of all of that, but I can't. It's all as best as you can. It's as best as you can in any given moment, and that's going to fluctuate. Okay. In terms of then what that does for your kids is that the more calmer you can stay, the more it teaches them about calmness. And I would absolutely start to, from as young as you can, start working on helping your children self regulate by grounding themselves, working on their breathing, working on simple child friendly meditations. It's not. It's not that they'll get it straight away, but if it becomes a consistent process that they do on an ongoing basis, you are giving them the best chance to be able to self-regulate as they go through their lives, while understanding that we all have moments of dysregulation, all of us, all of us. So I'd say, as a parent, focus on that side of things first. Work on your calmness for yourself. Work on your calmness. Try and teach your children how to work on their calmness levels, and look at what the stresses are at home. Like, I know probably when my eldest was young, or both of them were younger, maybe we had them involved in too many things at one time. Would I change it? I don't know. Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. But there was a lot going on. So there was maybe times where there wasn't a huge amount of space for them to decompress after school and stuff like that. So maybe I would change it. Maybe, but then when you've got kids going, I want to do all these things, that in itself can be challenging to say no to. But just try and manage the stress levels and look at what are the things that are causing me stress as an adult that may be increasing the tension within the household. In terms of education, right? So some schools, in my experience, are fantastic at recognizing potential neurodiversity in children and then supporting the parents and the teachers in adapting how they teach and how they interact with the child based on their suspicions. Some schools, it probably happens less and less, will even supply a psychological report if there's a need for that level. But some schools don't. They just don't have the facilities. They don't have necessarily the understanding. And like, schools are definitely they've gotten much, much better on the whole at starting to recognize things. But if you're an educator or a school, it's really important that you don't just turn around to a parent and go, I think your child's falling behind. It's important because that's scary as a parent. Now, I know as a teacher, you might have 30 kids in a class, but turning around to a parent and say, I think your child's got is falling behind or is developmental delay or something, and then going, sort it out and then come back to us, that really doesn't provide any benefit or usefulness for anybody, including yourself. So maybe look at, as an educator, how are ways that we can adapt our environment, our style of teaching, the content, based on what we think the child's capabilities are at, and try not to put the children in a position where they feel like all eyes are on them, because they are the ones who will have that internal voice that's telling them, you can't spell like everybody else, you can't add like everybody else, you can't think like everybody else, you are clumsy unlike everybody else. Everybody is faster, better, stronger, funnier. So they're at a very pivotal age in that primary school level where that internal voice is taking on something that it could talk about for the rest of the life. So try not to single them out and adapt as best as you can, given the constraints that you have as a teacher with 30 kids in a class. and look for the supports. In terms of a parent as supporting their child who may have dyslexia or may have not even dyslexia, not even a diagnosis, but just struggles with certain subjects. Okay, well, what can we do to put in place? You can sign up for FPK University and get those supports, but other supports are available. Does your child need extra help with X, Y, or Z? And you can go and get that extra help for them. But what's really, really important for everybody, I would suggest, this is me now getting on my high horse, right? But what I think is really important for everybody to understand when it comes to a child at home or in education, our job is not just to get them so that they're the same as everybody else. Our job is to help them build their confidence in their own ability to learn and magnifying their abilities and capabilities as being as important as the metrics and testing that we would do or that the schools would do. So if, okay, let's break down. So if little Alan at 7 years of age is really good at art, right, but struggles with maths, maybe sit down with little Alan and say, "Alan, you can do math. Like you can do math through understand. You can understand maths through using art. So, what do you like to draw, or what are you good at drawing?" So, Alan might be very good at drawing boxes, right? Little Alan might have the straightest hands for drawing boxes, the perfect square box. And then Alan's great at colouring it in and getting every little corner done. Doesn't go out the lines. In fact, he's so good at drawing boxes, he's great at drawing little 3D boxes then as well, colouring those in. And he's got a perfect little cube all of a sudden. Alan, that's a phenomenal picture. And that's a great skill that not everybody has. Do you know that you've got angles there? Do you know that you can add and subtract and multiply and divide using this little cube? And let's give it a go. Because you're attaching the new knowledge that you want them to learn to something that they have confidence in within themselves and their abilities already. Or I think I probably said it before, like as a kid, if you'd have told me, "Alan, you can absolutely have a career as a football player," I'd have chopped your hand off, right? But imagine I am terrible at geography, right? Terrible at geography. And you as my teacher went, "Alan, you are brilliant at geography. Where is Liverpool Football Club on the map of England?" I'll be going, "Well, it was there. I know exactly where it is." "Where's Manchester United?" "Well, they're there." "Where's Arsenal?" "Well, they're down there." "Where's Newcastle?" "Oh, they're up there." And then to scaffold on top of that, I go, okay, let's do the exact same thing for clubs in Ireland because we're doing Irish geography. Okay, Alan, you take tonight and you go home and you find on the map where all the Premier and First Division teams are in the League of Ireland football. I am so doing that. And then get me to draw the emblem or the badge or put the name in fancy writing beside them on this map that I'm drawing. I am absolutely going to be able to remember, or the chances of me being able to remember where all of those places are is much higher. And then it's very easy for me as a teacher then to go, okay, all of you, write down something you are good at, right? I'm not trying to tell teachers how to do their job. I'm just saying this is how, and lots of teachers do this. I do want to say that. Lots of them do this. Go, okay, we're doing geography, right? We're doing Irish geography. So we want to learn Irish geography. So little Alan is into his football, right? Alan, you go and find all the clubs, or find one club in each county in Ireland. Off you go. Find me the name of the club, draw me a picture of the club, or whatever. Off you go. Little Jay Sean, you're really big into surfing. Okay, right. Go and find me the places with the top 10 places for surfing in Ireland and draw them in on the map. Lisa, oh, you're really into computers, right? Or games, computer games. You're really big into computer games. Right. Go and find me where the top 10 Twitch streamers for your favorite game are based. And let's draw their name and picture and put them in. But they have to be in different counties. Tana, okay. You're big into makeup. All right, okay. Tana, you go and you find the top 10 Irish makeup brands that are based in 10 different counties in Ireland, and you draw them in your map, and you can make your maps look whatever way you want. It doesn't have to be a green island. Olive, right? You're big into schools, right? Olive loves schools, right? Olive, go and find me top 10 schools in 10 different counties in Ireland. Off you go. By tying that neurological knot together between this is something I'm interested in, this is something that you want me to learn or to start to learn. That's the other thing. Because somebody sitting there now might go, well, hold on a minute, Alan. You're going to need to know more than 10 counties in Ireland or 10 towns in Ireland. Yeah, but if I learn 10 now and link them to something that I'm interested in, it's much easier for me to scaffold on top of that and learn 10 more. And if the purpose is to learn 50 towns or cities in Ireland, ultimately within the year, the school year, there's a much better chance of me doing that if I can tie it all together with things that I'm interested in. Yes, it can be laborious. Yes, it can be time consuming, but there is more of a chance of the child having success, which then breeds confidence in their ability to actually overcome and learn, as opposed to maybe having a belief system of, I don't know, or take on the belief that I'm no good at math. I'm no good at Irish. I'm no good at Irish geography. I'm no good at whatever, history. So 33 minutes, Alan, 34 minutes. Because honestly, do you know how many questions I have? I'll be honest with you. I even number them. I have 30 questions, right? And it's just taken me 34 minutes to answer one. But what you know we'll do? We'll hold these in reserve just for future. Right. Well, we'll do another one. Oh, that is a tough one. Okay. Right, we'll go with it. How can parents balance supporting their neurodiverse child while also meeting the needs of siblings? There is no easy answer to this one. And I was going to say just there now, especially when your kids are younger, but actually no, there's just no easy way of doing it. I suppose the first thing I'd say is that, like, if we take the word the words neurodiverse out, sorry, of that question. Go, how can parents balance supporting their the the needs of their children with siblings? Like, it's not too different, although the neurodiverse child may have different challenges. But okay, balance. Balance is something that is dynamic. It would be great if we had the scales and we just were able to put X amount of things in here and Y amount of things in here and have that balance where it just didn't move at all. That would be phenomenal. But in life, it is more like that. And sometimes we're like that, sometimes we're like that, and sometimes we're a little bit shaky in between. So balance is going to be different from day to day, depending on the situation that you are dealing with and the conditions that you're operating out of. So even going back to the start of question 1, I'd say try and look after yourself and your own mental health, which then allows you to be able to be a bit more rational and logical when it comes to getting that balance as close to balanced as you can. So some parents will say, well, I don't want to like sit down with the other kids and go, look, little Alan has autism. So, you might get in trouble for things that he's not getting in trouble for. And that might frustrate you. And that might be something, that might be a conversation you can have, and it might work out okay. But it might not, because one, little Alan kind of goes, I don't want to be different to them. Or the other kids might go, that's not fair. And just because you tell me that Alan has autism doesn't mean I have to be okay, because I'm my own person and I've got my own needs, and my needs are as important as Alan's. Could you imagine a child actually sitting down and saying that to you? What answer could you have to that? Like, you just go, absolutely, you're right, right? So it might be a case of sitting down as a family and recognizing that we are striving for a level of fairness and continuity. And obviously, you're not going to use these words with your kids, but a level of fairness and continuity as parents bringing you guys up. We're not going to get it right all the time. We're going to make mistakes, because everyone makes mistakes, and it's going to be okay for us to make mistakes. It's going to be okay for you to make mistakes. Doesn't mean we're going to be happy if you make mistakes, but the exact same way you guys aren't necessarily going to be happy if we make mistakes. So I'd see if I could have that conversation. If they're really young, it might be a bit more difficult, but you might be able to have kind of side conversations with your kids as well, and kind of go, look, this is the situation. Your sibling, little Alan, doesn't understand yet the way we interact with each other. So he might get a bit more hyped up, and he might lash out. And I know you've been given out for lashing out at little Alan, and it might look like we're not giving out to little Alan, but what we're trying to do is teach him in a way that he will understand. Because if we just give out to him, it won't necessarily land for him, because he learns slightly differently. Now, again, when you're talking to children, they may not get it straight away. And that's where we have to try. And this is why, as I said at the very start, it's a challenging question. We have to try and find the avenue or the path that will help them understand it. And it's okay for them to not like what you're saying. I understand you're finding this frustrating. I understand that it doesn't seem fair. But we're all doing the best that we can to try and manage things as best as we can. Now, maybe this is where you and I sit down and have a little conversation and go, okay, if you're feeling frustrated, overwhelmed, this is how you can come and approach me. And I'm going to do my best that when you approach me and use this phrase, sausages, when you come and say to me, sausages, I'm going to try and understand that this is your way of saying, I need to get something off my chest, otherwise I'm going to blow. And I'll find a way to help you de-escalate. We're doing the exact same thing for little Alan. It's just our way of doing it is different because he is learning in a different way to you. And we're going to try it. And that's when then you as a parent have to work on yourself so that you can manage that situation as best as you can, because you might be highly stressed in a moment and little Alan is kicking off, and then your other kid comes along and goes, sausages, sausages, all the sausages, and you're like, oh my God, my brain is not working, it's going to shut down, I can't cope with this. And you may not respond in a way that you would like to, but it's okay to turn around and go, I am sorry. I'm trying my best. So all you can do as a parent to try and support all your kids as best as you can is try and be as honest as you can and supportive, but try and give them the tools to manage themselves. And you're not going to get it right. Your kids aren't going to get it right all the time. That is just part of growing up, whether there's neurodiversity there or not. Like, people keep talking about how there's so much more autism and there's so much more ADHD and dyslexia and stuff like that. Excuse me. But there's probably as much as there was before. It's just we're getting tested more. We understand things a lot more. There's a lot more conversations about it. So years ago, I remember in school, there was the dunces class. That's what it was called, the dunces class, where all the people who couldn't spell or couldn't add or who couldn't read or write went to the dunces class and spent most of their morning in the dunces class, and everyone knew it as the dunces class, and they knew it as the dunces class. That just was what it was. They all had neurodiversity. They were all neurodiverse, absolutely. To well, I was going to say a boy, because I was in an all-boys school as a kid, but no doubt it was the same for the girls. That there was additional learning needs there. So it's good that we have more awareness. It's good that we have more young people getting access to supports and tools to help them manage themselves better. And schools are slowly but surely getting more supports to help them deliver education in a way that works for those who need it without having a dunces class. So just recognize that we're all trying to do the best we can, and you are as a parent and maybe as a child. Like, maybe you're an adult here who's tuning in and you grew up in that situation where you had a child or a sibling, who maybe had those extra needs, and you felt that it wasn't fair how I was treated. They got away with so much more than I ever did. But you can probably, as an adult, go, well, looking back now, I understand things better. So I can kind of understand that my parents did the best they could in the situation. And at the time, I didn't like it. And now I can look back and go, yeah, I wish that hadn't been the way. But it was. We can't go back and erase our history. It is what it is. So we just have to try and find a way of accepting that as an adult and go, okay, it is what it is. And all I can do now is try and live my life because I'm an adult as best as I can. That was one of the questions that was sent in by my 7-question person. So I hope that was useful to you. Okay, how are we doing, Thomas? 45 minutes, right. Let's try and get one more question in. Okay. What are yeah. Oh, Alan, you are picking some crackers today. Okay, what are some of the practical ways, excuse me, to handle meltdowns or sensory overload moments calmly? By staying calm. I can imagine the person who asked that, if they were sitting in the room right now, would happily turn around and leather me across the jaw with their fist, because they'll go, Alan, if I could, I would. Right. Let's break that down. So, how can we practically handle meltdowns or sensory overloads calmly? So, it'll go again right back to the very first point I made answering the first question, is to look at the stresses that you have in your life and how are you coping with those stresses. So I was running a parenting course yesterday, and we have a good big group actually. And one of the parents was saying that she just gets angry every single day. Not to 100, not to 100, every single day. And she was like, how do I stop getting angry every single day? And we were chatting about it. And in fairness to her, she was quite open with the group, and that was good because there was learning for the group. And I was saying, do you go and speak to somebody? She kind of went, well, what do you mean? I went, well, like, you're so busy looking after everybody else, trying to work full time. You've got kids on a range of ages, never mind levels. And there's a few other family dynamics in there. I was like, where's the space for you to talk about your needs and what's going on? She did a big space for me. What? What are you talking about? My job on this planet appears to be feeding all these lot and that fella over there, dealing with all the family stuff while he's not dealing with it. Go to work and deal with the shit in work while my boss sits over there doing nothing because he's an asshole. Her words, not mine. And absolutely no space in here for me. So I don't know. Okay, well, is there potential for you to get an opportunity to go and talk to somebody? And I was like, it doesn't have to be every week. It might be once a month. But for any of us, it's really important for us to try and find that space. It might be physical space, or it might be mental space, it might be emotional space, but just find that space for ourselves so we can talk through what's going on for us and try and process things as best as we can. And because we've got our own history, we've got our own journey, we've got our own baggage that's kind of hanging around. So, can we actually find even just a little modicum of space where we can sit down and talk about how we're feeling? And not everybody wants to do this, but it's amazing the amount of people I know who do it. Kind of go, don't know if that's for me, and find actually it was kind of nice. Because when do we get the opportunity in everyday life to sit down and talk about what is going on for us and our emotions and not have the other person interpret or react emotionally because they're emotionally invested in us? So I could imagine if I went down and spoke to my mom and I said, Mom, I am really, really upset. Like, I'm really upset. I'm finding it really difficult with my kids. I actually just want to pack my bags and walk out the door. There's a good chance, because she's emotionally invested in me and my grandchildren, or on her grandchildren, that she'll go, Jesus, Alan, don't do that. Like, don't pack up and go. Like, oh my God, like, what would the kids do? And like, I tell you what, do you want me to take the kids for a while and give you a break? Like, I'll do that for you. And do you need me to do something else for you? Like, she'll react because she's worried about her son. So having that space over here, or maybe it's just this little space here, where we can talk about ourselves and go, I feel like I'm having a shit day today. And have someone go, well, let's talk about it. What do you want to say about it? Usually the process of getting to the end of that is generally can be a positive one, even if the content isn't positive, even if there's no resolution for you necessarily in terms of, I want to fix this. You may not get a fix for this, but talking it out might get a bit more clarity for you because you are not being bombarded by emotions, people, things, work, none of that stuff. So go and talk to somebody if you can. There's services out there that are free. So that will give you a better chance. Processing your own stuff so that you can stay calmer, not calm, but calmer. That then helps you stay calmer if there's a meltdown or a sensory overload. And just start to pay attention to triggers. That's the other thing. So usually, not all the time, but usually something, when there's a meltdown, we'll see it over here. And usually what we do is we react to the meltdown, right? But usually something has occurred before, or something has occurred before, or something has occurred before, or there's a little accumulation of little things that will impact on this big thing here that we're reacting to. So if we can start to pay attention to what are the things that are going on before. Maybe my child had a meltdown at 5 o'clock in the evening because they didn't get to sleep until after midnight, and I woke them up at 7 to get them out to go to school, and they have had no time to actually catch up on sleep. And then they try their best all day to not get in trouble in school, and then they come home and there's like boom. Maybe the sleep was the ultimate trigger, but it took them whatever amount of hours, 12 hours or 11 hours or 10 hours before we saw the impact of that. Or maybe they did get sleep, but maybe they weren't feeling too hungry this morning, so they didn't eat that much breakfast. And then they were playing at lunchtime in school, and they kind of forgot to eat their lunch. And a teacher gave out to them because they got a bit too hyper. Then they get home. And you're left dealing with something that you're like, what the hell is this all about? Where did this come from? So start to try and pay attention to see if there's any pattern to those triggers. So it might be bright lights, it might be big crowds, it might be games, TV shows, hyping them up, like really, really increasing the stimulation. And just jot those down and put them in your phone, put them on a piece of paper. Just this is what happened. And then you'll start to gain a bit of an insight and a bit of a potential picture into what might cause those meltdowns so you can try and prevent them before they start. So you're staying calm and you're helping your child stay calmer by reducing the triggers. And as your child gets older, you can start to talk about, well, look, these have been some of the triggers that have kickstarted a meltdown for you over the years. So how can we find a way to regulate that? And it might be like, we need to negotiate an amount of time you have on your computer, because if you hit an hour on the computer, usually that's when there's an explosion. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut it back to 45 minutes or 50 minutes. And we're going to see how you cope with that. What that's actually doing is showing your child you're going to work with them. Now, they're not necessarily going to be happy, but you're going to work with them to try and help them become stronger in their ability to self-regulate, so that they are not getting to a point where it's like 1 hour, boom. So they might get to 50 minutes and they might still feel it coming, but they're kind of going, because they haven't had that extra 10, 15 minutes, they can bring themselves down quicker. And maybe you can acknowledge that, or maybe not, because sometimes the acknowledgement can be the trigger as well. So you'll know best for your child. So work on yourself. Go and get some support if you need it. Try and find space for yourself to work on your ability to calm yourself down. With your child, don't just pay attention. Like, you have to deal with the meltdown when it happens. Like, you just have to deal with it. You've no choice. But after the event, when you've calmed down and they've calmed down, start to look at what might be the triggers and see if there's patterns, and then look at how can I influence those patterns. It could be a very slow process. It might be quicker than you think, though. But if it is a slow process, give it that time, because if it takes you 6 months to figure out how to change a trigger for your child, well, you have your child for 18 years. So 6 months in the frame of 18 years, or 6 weeks, or a month, might be actually nothing. Like, it's a drop in the ocean. So it might be worth putting that time in to help them find the ways that they can de-escalate, and you learn how to de-escalate situations before they start to escalate. Right. 30 questions asked. 3 questions answered. I'm very proud of myself, and 57 minutes hit on the clock. I do apologize for not answering all 30 questions, but it was a fun little chat and a fun little conversation with myself. I hope you guys have found it useful. We will be back with the Future Proof Knowledge podcast next week. We're here every week. It's just how we roll. We will hopefully have a guest very soon. And if it ends up being just me because of circumstances, well, at least you know he's going to talk some amount of shite, answering some good questions. And hopefully he'll have found some use in them. All right. From me, I am out. Let's bring on the AIO band.
FPK, Future Proof Knowledge Podcast. Mind unlocked. With every episode we cast real talk, real tools, wisdom on the fly. Tune in, geek out, reach for the sky. FPK, Future Proof Knowledge